The Voth's words echoed across the assembly chamber, arrogance dripping from every syllable. "Little more than hairless apes," Ambassador Hydrus sneered, his holographic avatar towering over the Earth delegation. "Humanity has no place on the galactic stage. Your kind are an embarrassment, a primitive species stumbling in the dark, grasping at the coattails of your betters. We, the mighty Voth, have tolerated your antics long enough." Hydrus's scathing declaration sent shockwaves rippling through the assembly. Stunned silence gave way to a rising tide of outrage from Earth's representatives. Calls for sanctions and embargoes against the Voth Empire grew to a fever pitch. Yet as Earth's leaders argued and blustered, one man remained calm, a knowing glint in his steel-gray eyes. Aerospace Force Commander Terry Davis had seen this day coming for years. He had tracked the Voth's mounting hostility, witnessed their blatant violations of interstellar law, and in the deepest, most classified vaults of Earth's military archives, he had uncovered a secret that would change everything. In a historic address that would be remembered for generations, Patel stood before the people of Earth and uttered the words that would ignite the greatest conflict the galaxy had ever known. As the Anarian fleet rose from the depths of the Earth, a thunderous roar shook the planet to its core. Plumes of dust and debris billowed into the atmosphere as the ancient ships, gleaming in the sunlight, ascended to take their place in orbit. On the surface below, the cities of Earth erupted in celebration and chaos alike. Crowds thronged the streets, their faces upturned to the sky in awe and terror. Aboard the Voth flagship, Emperor Zoltar clenched his scaly fists in rage as he watched the scene unfold. "So, the hairless apes have found themselves some new toys," he snarled. "They will soon learn the folly of their audacity." He turned to Admiral Cragg, his most ruthless commander, and issued a single grim order: "Crush them." Cragg's lips curled in a cruel smile. "With pleasure, my lord." He turned on his heel and strode from the bridge, already formulating his plan of attack. On the Prometheus, the flagship of the Anarian fleet, Commander Terry Davis watched the Voth armada approach with a mixture of anticipation and unease. His crew scrambled to unlock the secrets of the ship's quantum flux technology, their fingers flying over unfamiliar controls. "Lieutenant Nakamura, status report," Davis barked. Jenna Nakamura, her brow furrowed in concentration, glanced up from her console. "The quantum flux cannon is online, sir, but the targeting systems are still a mystery." Davis nodded grimly. "Keep at it. We're going to need every advantage we can get." Davis leaned forward in his command chair, his eyes narrowed. "I don't think so, Admiral. The Anarian fleet stands ready to defend Earth. Turn back now or face the consequences." Cragg laughed, a harsh grating sound. "You bluff, human. Your ships are relics and your crews untested. The Voth will swat you aside like the insects you are." Davis felt a cold fury rising within him. He turned to Lieutenant Nakamura. "Fire a warning shot. Aim for their flagship." A blinding beam of energy erupted from the Prometheus bow, slicing through the void of space. It struck the Voth flagship's shields in a cascade of sparks and fire. The mighty vessel shuddered under the impact, its shields flickering and dying. Cragg's face contorted in shock and rage. "Impossible!" he hissed. Davis allowed himself a grim smile. "Believe it, Admiral. Now I suggest you retreat while you still can." As the Voth fleet fell back in disarray, news of the encounter raced across the galaxy. On distant worlds, alien races watched in stunned disbelief as the balance of power shifted before their eyes. "Docking sequence initiated," Ensign Chen announced from his station. "Zephyr shuttle approaching." Davis straightened his uniform and nodded to President Patel, who had arrived via secure transport to participate in the talks. "Let's hope this goes better than our last diplomatic encounter," Davis muttered. "Welcome aboard the Prometheus, Ambassador," President Patel said, extending his hand. Lyra regarded it for a moment before grasping it firmly. As they settled into the conference room, Lyra's violet eyes swept over the assembled humans. "I must admit, your sudden emergence has caused quite a stir." Lyra's expression remained neutral. "Bold words, Commander, but actions speak louder. The galaxy has long suffered under Voth dominance. Many hope your rise signals change, while others fear a new tyrant. President Patel nodded solemnly. We have no desire to become oppressors. Our goal is peaceful coexistence and mutual prosperity. As they hammered out the details, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Nakamura's voice crackled over the intercom. Commander, urgent message from Earth. Voth forces are attacking the Epsilon colony. Davis shot to his feet, his face grim. Looks like our timetable just accelerated. Ambassador Lyra, will the Zephyrs stand with us against this aggression? Lyra paused for a heartbeat, then nodded decisively. We will. This attack threatens more than just humanity. It jeopardizes the stability of the entire sector. As the ancient fleet surged to life, Davis turned to President Patel. Sir, we need to discuss rules of engagement. This technology is beyond anything we've wielded before. Patel's expression was grave. Agreed. We must use this power responsibly, or we risk becoming the very thing we seek to oppose. Sir, Nakamura reported, Zephyr reinforcements are en route. ETA to Epsilon, 17 minutes. The Prometheus dropped out of quantum flux, the swirling energies dissipating to reveal a horrifying scene. Epsilon colony hung in space, its orbital defenses shattered and burning. Voth warships swarmed around the beleaguered human outpost, their plasma weapons carving molten furrows across its surface. Commander Davis wasted no time. All ships, battle formation Delta, prepare quantum flux cannons for simultaneous barrage. Davis cut the feed. Fire! Sir, Nakamura called out, the colony's reactor, it's going critical. Davis's mind raced. If that reactor blew, it would take out half their fleet. Nakamura, prep a strike team. You're going in. Minutes later, Jenna found herself piloting a bomber through a maelstrom of weapons fire. Her strike team's mission, deliver an EMP payload to shut down the overloading reactor before it was too late. 30 seconds to target, she announced, her craft shuddering as it took a glancing hit. Now, she yelled as they screamed over the reactor complex. The EMP dropped, detonating in a crackling sphere of energy. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the reactor's ominous glow faded, crisis averted. Cheers erupted over the comm, cut short as Jenna's bomber took a direct hit. Alarms screamed as systems failed. Mayday! Mayday! She called out, struggling with the controls. The crippled craft spun away from the battle, drifting into an uncharted region of nearby nebula. Back on the Prometheus, Davis watched in dismay as Nakamura's fighter disappeared from sensors. But there was no time to mount a rescue, not with Kargas still in the fight. The warlord's remaining ships clustered around his wounded flagship, desperately trying to punch through the human lines. With a bone-jarring impact, Zephyr reinforcements dropped out of FTL, their iridescent hulls gleaming as they joined the fray. The battle raged on, energy weapons and explosions painting the void in stark relief. Slowly but surely, the tide turned. Kargas's fleet, caught between hammer and anvil, began to crumble. Hours later, it was over. The last Voth ship fleeing into hyperspace, leaving behind a field of debris and the battered but intact Epsilon colony. As the adrenaline faded, Davis turned his attention to the troubling implications of their victory. Little did he know that as they celebrated their hard-fought triumph, forces were already in motion that would change the course of the war, and perhaps humanity itself. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth Command, Ensign Chen announced. Davis nodded grimly. Understood, Mr. President. We'll increase patrols along our borders, and... Alarms blared, cutting him off. Multiple contacts dropping out of FTL, Chen shouted. It's the Crodons, sir! A swarm of angular obsidian ships materialized in the void, their hulls dripping with weaponry. At their center loomed a monstrous dreadnought, easily dwarfing the Prometheus. Open a channel, Davis ordered, his fists tight. A reptilian face filled the screen, scales glinting in the harsh light of a command center. I am Supreme Admiral Vortak of the Voth Empire, the alien hissed. And this is Admiral Kresh of the Crodon Armada. Your time of ascendance ends now, humans. Davis's mind raced, processing the implications of this unholy alliance. You're making a mistake, Vortak. We have no quarrel with... The channel closed, and space erupted in a maelstrom of weapons fire. The Prometheus shuddered under the assault, its ancient shields flaring brilliantly. All ships, battle formation, Davis shouted. Concentrate fire on their lead vessels. Send word to Earth, he ordered Chen. We need reinforcements at the Zephyr homeworld immediately. Thousands of light years away, Lieutenant Jenna Nakamura jolted awake in her quarters aboard the research vessel Athena. Her head throbbed, filled with alien whispers and fragments of impossible knowledge. The spores she'd encountered in that derelict ship had changed her, unlocking something deep within her mind. An alert chimed, and Dr. Emerson's face appeared on her personal console. Jenna, we need you in the lab, now. Their formations, she murmured, tracing patterns in the air. There's a rhythm to it, a vulnerability we can exploit. We have to go, she rasped. They're tearing through our defenses. On the Zephyr homeworld of Lumina, Ambassador Lyra sprinted through the corridors of the High Council chamber, alarms blaring all around her. Explosions rocked the building as insurrectionist forces led by Malcor launched their assault. Counselor Arana, Lyra called out, spotting her mentor stumbling from a smoke-filled room. We must evacuate. Arana shook her head, violet blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. No, child, you must go. Rally our forces, call upon our human allies. The fate of our people rests in your hands. Tears stinging her eyes, Lyra nodded and sprinted for the emergency shuttle bay. As her craft punched through the atmosphere, she watched in horror as Croton warships descended upon her world. The response came swiftly. A quantum rift tore open in space, disgorging a battle group of gleaming precursor vessels. At their head flew the Athena, Lieutenant Nakamura standing rigidly on its bridge. Jenna's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she interfaced directly with the ship's systems. All units, form up on me, she commanded, her voice resonating with newfound authority. We end this now. Admiral Kresch's voice boomed across all channels, a mixture of rage and disbelief. Impossible! How are they anticipating our every move? But even as the tide began to turn, Jenna knew this was only the beginning. The real test lay ahead, a confrontation that would determine the fate of humanity, the Zephyr, and the entire galaxy. Remember, he cautioned his team, minimal contact with any biological material. We're here for data retrieval only. They pushed into the alien corridors, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. Hendrix's breath caught as they entered what appeared to be a central command center. Holographic displays flickered to life, responding to their presence. A stasis pod hissed open, revealing a crystalline data core. As Hendrix carefully extracted it, the ship's systems surged. Information flooded the screens, ancient glyphs resolving into recognizable text. You're certain? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. Dr. Hendrix's team has verified the data multiple times. The precursors, they created us. All of us. We need to inform our allies, he said at last. This changes the nature of our fight against the Croton and Voth. We're not just defending ourselves anymore. On the Prometheus, Commander Davis found Lieutenant Nakamura in the ship's arboretum, her eyes closed in deep concentration. The air around her seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly energy. Jenna, he said softly, not wanting to startle her. Her eyes opened, glowing with an inner light that was becoming all too familiar. Commander, she acknowledged, her voice carrying an echo of something ancient and powerful. How are you holding up? Davis asked, genuine concern in his tone. Nakamura's lips quirked in a wry smile. Better than expected, considering I'm evolving into something beyond human. She flexed her fingers, watching arcs of energy dance between them. It's overwhelming, but I've never felt more connected to our purpose. Davis nodded, choosing his next words carefully. We're going to need that connection. The revelations about the precursors, the responsibility we've inherited, it's a lot to process. I know, Nakamura said, her expression softening. But we're not alone in this, sir. The Zephyr, our other allies, will face it together. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the ship. Chen's voice crackled over the intercom. Commander to the bridge. Crodon Voth fleet detected near Hadrix. All ships, battle formation Delta, Davis ordered, his voice steady despite the tension. Remember your training with the precursor tech. Trust your instincts. Across the fleet, crews felt a surge of connection, the ancient ships resonating with their own grit. As one, they faced the incoming Crodon Voth armada, a cloud of destruction bearing down on them. For Earth, for Lumina, for all life in the galaxy, Ambassador Lyra's voice rang out across the comms. We stand together. The void erupted in a maelstrom of weapons fire. Quantum lances sliced through Crodon hulls, while Zephyr fighters danced between Voth plasma bolts. At the heart of the chaos, Nakamura led her strike team towards Vortak's flagship, their boarding craft weaving through the debris field. The doors slid open, revealing Supreme Admiral Vortak, his scales jam-packed with fury. You dare? He snarled, raising a wicked-looking sidearm. Nakamura's hand shot out, a pulse of energy sending the weapon flying. It's over, Vortak. Stand down. Outside, the battle raged on. Both sides had taken heavy losses, willpower fueling them past the point of reason. Just as it seemed the conflict would end in mutual annihilation, a blinding light engulfed the battlefield. Ships froze in place, weapon systems going dark. A presence filled every mind, every communication channel, ancient and wise, yet brimming with nearly unleashed power. Enough, the Oracle spoke, its voice resonating across time and space. The test is complete. The heirs have been chosen. As the light faded and ships began to power back up, Davis looked out at the scarred fleets and war-torn space around Hadrix. The real work he knew was just beginning. Patel's hologram paced, hands clasped behind his back. We need a plan, Davis, a way to bring order to this chaos and fulfill our role as galactic guardians. As the transmission ended, Davis turned to find Nakamura already standing at attention. Her eyes still held that otherworldly glow, but her voice was steady. I'm ready, sir. Weeks later, the newly christened diplomatic vessel Concordia dropped out of FTL above Ryloth, a dusty world on the galactic fringe. Nakamura stood on the bridge, her senses extending far beyond the ship's sensors. Ambassador Lyra nodded, her luminescent skin shimmering with concern. Their isolation has bred mistrust. We must tread carefully. As they prepared to make contact, alarms blared across the ship. A massive energy signature erupted on the planet's surface, followed by panicked transmissions from a Twi'lek settlement. We're under attack, a voice cried out in broken galactic standard. Human ships. They say we harbor Voth. Nakamura's blood ran cold. That's impossible. We haven't authorized any... This is Admiral Marcus to all forces, his gravelly voice boomed across all frequencies. These alien scum are in league with our enemies. Commence bombardment. Nakamura's mind raced, reaching out to interface with the Concordia's systems. Belay that order, she shouted, broadcasting on Marcus's command frequency. Admiral, stand down immediately. For a tense moment, the Retribution's weapons remained primed. Then slowly they powered down. Lieutenant Nakamura, Marcus growled, you're interfering with a sanctioned operation. No, Admiral, Nakamura replied, her voice infused with precursor energy. I'm preventing a catastrophic mistake. Hours later, in a makeshift command center on Ryloth's surface, Nakamura faced down Marcus. The Admiral's face was flushed with nearly unleashed rage. You've made a grave error, Lieutenant, he snarled. These aliens can't be trusted. We should be consolidating our power, not coddling potential threats. Nakamura's eyes flashed. The only threat here is you, Admiral. Your actions have jeopardized everything we're working towards. As if summoned by her words, the air shimmered. The oracle materialized, its presence filling the room with an oppressive weight. The seeds of discord have been sown, it intoned, its voice echoing across realities. A great test lies ahead. The calamity awakens. Before anyone could respond, the oracle vanished. In its wake, Nakamura gasped, clutching her head as visions assaulted her mind. A dead world, pulsing with malevolent energy, cloaked figures chanting in an eldritch tongue, and at the center of it all, a construct of impossible geometry, its activation sending shockwaves across the cosmos. She snapped back to reality, her eyes wide with terror. "Commander Davis," she rasped into her comm. "We have a problem. A big one." Across the galaxy, on a commandeered Croton warship, Malik smiled as reports of the Ryloth incident flooded in. The exiled Zephyr turned to his unlikely allies, a Voth admiral and a Croton warlord. "You see," he purred, "the humans are not the benevolent guardians they claim to be. Their own kind sows chaos in their wake." As the conspirators plotted, none of them noticed the faint tremor that ran through the ship, a harbinger of the cataclysm to come. On Earth, President Patel stared out the window of his office, watching the sun set on another day of heated debates and political maneuvering. The Armageddon directive lay heavy on his mind, its destructive potential a constant temptation to those who sought a quick solution to their problems. A priority alert chimed on his desk. He turned, heart sinking as he read the message from Commander Davis. "Mr. President," it began, "Lieutenant Nakamura has made contact. We face a threat beyond anything we've encountered. Recommend immediate activation of Protocol Omega." Patel closed his eyes, steeling himself for what was to come. As he reached for the comm to summon his advisors, he couldn't shake the feeling that the true test of humanity's worth as galactic guardians was only just beginning. Nakamura's eyes snapped open, the terror of her vision still pulsing through her veins. She grabbed Commander Davis's arm, her grip unnaturally strong. "The calamity," she gasped. "It's not just a threat. It's unmaking reality itself." Davis steadied her, his face grim. "What do you need, Lieutenant?" Nakamura's gaze swept the makeshift command center, settling on the still-fuming Admiral Marcus. "I need everyone, even our enemies." The Twi'lek leader, his Leku twitching with anger, turned to Marcus. "You would destroy us based on lies?" Marcus sputtered, but Nakamura cut him off. "There's a greater threat, one that will unmake us all if we don't stand together." With the Rylothians secured, Nakamura set her sights on the wounded Croton Empire. She faced down their war council, her voice resonating with precursor power. The Croton Imperator, his massive form looming over her, nodded slowly. "We are pragmatic. The Crotons stand with you." "Why should we trust you, human?" Shraka hissed. Nakamura's eyes flashed, and suddenly they were both somewhere else, a desolate wasteland that had once been the Voth homeworld. "This is your future if the Coven wins," Nakamura said softly. With unlikely allies assembled, Nakamura led a strike force to Orcs, the Coven's stronghold. The planet's surface writhed with eldritch energies, reality itself seeming to warp and twist. "Hold fast!" Nakamura shouted as they fought through waves of monstrosities. "We're close!" "Status on Nakamura's team?" he barked. "They've breached the inner sanctum," Chen reported. "But, sir, we're detecting massive energy buildup. They're activating more constructs." On Orcs, Nakamura burst into a vast chamber, its geometry defying comprehension. At its center stood a figure more machine than human, tendrils of precursor tech fused with withered flesh. "Arch-primate," Nakamura breathed. The being's head swiveled, eyes glowing with madness. "The universe will be unmade," it rasped, "and from its ashes we shall forge perfection." Nakamura felt the precursor energy within her surge. She reached out, grasping the threads of reality itself. For a moment, she glimpsed the totality of existence and the void that threatened to consume it all. With a scream of defiance, she severed the Arch-primate's connection to the constructs. The backlash sent her crumpling to the ground, consciousness fading. "Sir, we have reports of military forces converging on our location. It's Admiral Marcus. He's launched a coup." Patel's mind focused. He reached for the comm, praying it wasn't too late. "This is President Patel to all Loyalist forces. Initiate Protocol Omega. I repeat, initiate Protocol Omega." Nakamura's eyes fluttered open, her vision swimming with after-images of cosmic forces. The Oracle stood before her, its form shimmering with otherworldly energy. "Rise, Guardian," it intoned. "Your task is far from complete." As Nakamura struggled to her feet, the chamber around her began to dissolve. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp, reforming into the sleek corridors of a starship. She found herself on the bridge of the Prometheus, surrounded by the exhausted but triumphant faces of her comrades. Nakamura nodded, her mind still reeling from the psychic backlash. The Archprimate? Contained, Davis replied. But we've got bigger problems. Earth is in chaos. As if on cue, a priority transmission cut through the bridge's chatter. President Patel's hologram materialized, his face haggard and drawn. Commander Davis, Patel said, his voice tight. Admiral Marcus has launched a coup. I've initiated Protocol Omega, but I fear it may not be enough. There, she said, pointing to a seemingly innocuous office building. Marcus's command center. Davis nodded grimly. Chen, get us as close as you can. Nakamura, you're with me. The drop pods slammed into the street outside the building, disgorging Davis, Nakamura, and a squad of elite Marines. They fought their way through waves of Marcus's loyalists, Nakamura's precursor-enhanced abilities turning the tide. It's over, Marcus, Davis said, leveling his weapon. Stand down. Marcus sneered. You don't understand. The aliens will never truly accept us. We need to strike now while they're weakened. No more, she said softly. In the days that followed, the galaxy held its breath. As the dust settled on Earth, President Patel addressed the world, announcing his resignation and the formation of an interim government under Commander Davis's leadership. On the newly christened world of Nexus, Nakamura stood before the assembled representatives of a dozen species. Her eyes glowed with the wisdom of countless Oracle avatars as she spoke. As the delegates debated and negotiated, Nakamura felt the weight of her responsibility settle upon her shoulders. She knew that the real work was only beginning. As if in response, the artifact flared, sending a ripple of energy across the cosmos. On Nexus, Nakamura's head snapped up, her eyes wide with sudden, terrible understanding. The battle for reality itself was nowhere near the end. The newly formed Galactic Council convened on Nexus, the chamber buzzing with tension. Representatives from a dozen species shifted uneasily in their seats as Malak, the exiled Zephyr, took the floor. We cannot afford weakness, Malak declared, his voice carrying across the chamber. The Calamity Coven may be scattered, but they are not defeated. We must strike now, while they are vulnerable. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Nakamura watched, her face impassive but her mind racing. She stepped forward, her eyes glowing with the wisdom of the Oracle. Violence begets violence, she countered. We've seen where that path leads. Our strength lies in unity, not in punitive strikes. The debate raged on, with counselors taking sides. In the shadows, Chief Advisor Farah Delani observed, her keen mind cataloging every nuance and alliance. Contain the threat, she ordered, and gather every scrap of intel. As the dust settled, Delani pored over the data. A pattern emerged, leading her to a startling discovery. She burst into Nakamura's office, eyes wide. Oracle, she said, I've found something. Admiral Shraka's old guard. They're working with the Rixor Syndicate. Precursor tech is changing hands. Nakamura's brow furrowed. Deploy your teams, Farah. We need eyes on this operation. We offer our aid, it burbled through a translator. Our ways may seem strange to you, but we share the goal of healing. As reconstruction efforts began, Dr. Hendrix's team made a breakthrough on a desolate moon. In the ruins of a Coven facility, they uncovered schematics that sent shockwaves through the council. A terraforming weapon, Hendrix breathed, his hands shaking as he examined the holographic display. We could remake worlds. Word spread quickly. Nakamura saw hope, a chance to rebuild on an unprecedented scale. Malak saw power, a means to subjugate. The Oracle moved swiftly, authorizing the device's use on Yorhan Prime without council approval. As the first new continents took shape, Malak's forces appeared in orbit. This is an illegal action. Malak's voice boomed across all frequencies. Stand down immediately. Delani's loyalist fleet dropped out of hyperspace, weapons charged. Negative, she responded. The reconstruction will continue. As the standoff intensified, a priority alert flashed across Nakamura's neural link. Deep space probes had detected activity in the Charna expanse, a region of space shrouded in dark matter and gravitational anomalies. "Assemble a strike team," Nakamura ordered, her voice tight. "We need to know what we're dealing with." As the galaxy teetered on the brink of renewed conflict, Nakamura felt the weight of countless lives pressing down on her. The Calamity Coven's remnants were out there, waiting, and she knew that the next move would determine the fate of everything they had fought to protect. The Prometheus sliced through the inky void of the Charna expanse, its sensors straining against the dark matter interference. On the bridge, Commander Kyrios studied the tactical display, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic readouts. "Another gravitational anomaly dead ahead," Lieutenant Zalara reported, her silver eyes unfocused as she probed the space around them with her psionic abilities. "Adjusting course." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a structure that seemed to phase in and out of existence. One moment, it was a sprawling complex of angular metal, the next a ghostly outline barely visible against the backdrop of space. "Phase-shifting technology," Kyrios muttered. "Prep for insertion. We go in hot." Minutes later, the strike team materialized inside the facility. Kyrios raised his pulse rifle, scanning the corridor. The walls seemed to ripple and shift, as if reality itself was unstable here. "Move out. Stay alert for..." They fought their way through the twisting corridors, reality bending around them. Finally, they burst into a vast chamber dominated by a towering metallic construct. "Jervix," Zalara breathed, recognizing the ancient AI. Before they could act, a wave of psychic force slammed into them. Kyrios felt his consciousness slipping away as a withered figure emerged from the shadows. Meanwhile, on Nexus, chaos erupted. Alarms blared through the council chambers as Malik's supporters made their move. "This is Admiral Yaren," a voice boomed over the comms. "By emergency protocol, I am assuming control of the Armada. All Loyalist forces, stand down immediately." "We need to get off-world," he shouted over the din. "Rally what forces we can and regroup." They fought their way to the spaceport, Delaney's counterinsurgency teams providing cover. As they reached the last shuttle, a squad of Yaron's commandos burst onto the landing pad. In orbit, the Loyalist and dissident fleets clashed. Davis watched from the viewport as Nexus receded, his eyebrows furrowed. "Set course for Ataray," he ordered. "We need to reactivate the terraformer. It's our only chance." As the shuttle jumped to hyperspace, Oracle Nakamura stirred within her Wukop-crafted sanctuary. Her eyes snapped open, glowing with otherworldly energy. "The Charna team," she gasped. "They've found something that could shatter reality itself." The Wukop attendant undulated nervously. "What must we do, Oracle?" Nakamura's gaze hardened. "Prepare a ship. We need to reach Atare before it's too late." Nakamura's eyes snapped open, her body convulsing as visions cascaded through her mind. The Wukop attendant recoiled, its tentacles writhing in alarm. "We're too late," Nakamura gasped, her voice raw. "The remnant..." Her words were cut short as the sanctuary shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the view screens erupted with chaos. Across the galaxy, remnant battle droids tore through defenses easily. "Evasive maneuvers," he barked, but it was futile. The bridge exploded in a shower of sparks as another RKV grazed their hull. Meanwhile, on Nexus, Malik strode through the smoke-filled command center. Bodies littered the floor, victims of the initial remnant assault. He snarled, activating the emergency broadcast system. Across the sector, Malik's loyalists unleashed devastating strikes against suspected resistance strongholds. Entire colonies were reduced to ash in the name of galactic security. On Atare, Commander Davis sprinted through collapsing corridors as remnant forces bombarded the planet. He reached the terraformer's access bay, Delaney close behind. "Get those engines fired up," he shouted to the engineering team. "We've got minutes before this whole facility comes down on our heads." The massive device hummed to life, its generators straining as it lifted off. Davis watched through the viewports as Atare's surface erupted in flames. In the depths of the Charna facility, Kyrios hung suspended in a containment field. The arch-primate circled him, eyes gleaming with madness. Kyrios spat blood, his commitment crumbling under the relentless psychic assault. "Adare," he croaked. "It's on, Adare." As they reached the hangar bay, a Rixor transport touched down. Mercenaries poured out, weapons trained on the fugitives. Between them stood a towering obelisk, pulsing with otherworldly energy. Well, the Rixor captain sneered. "Looks like we've got ourselves some bonus cargo." Back on her sanctuary ship, Nakamura's eyes blazed with precursor energy. The Wukop biotechnicians worked feverishly, integrating salvage Voth AI into their systems. "There," Nakamura breathed, her finger tracing a point in the void of intergalactic space. "The source of Jervix's signal." The view screen zoomed in, revealing a massive structure hidden behind quantum shielding. A Dyson sphere of impossible scale, its surface crawling with remnant ships. Nakamura's voice was grim as she opened a channel to all allied frequencies. "This is Oracle Nakamura. We've located the remnant staging ground. Coordinates are being transmitted now. All available forces converge on this location. The fate of reality itself hangs in the balance." As the message spread, fleets across the galaxy changed course. Loyalists, resistance fighters, and even Malek's Zephyr forces recognized the existential threat. A fragile alliance formed in the face of annihilation. The sanctuary ship rocketed towards the Charna sphere, leading the charge. Nakamura stood at the helm, her face set in drive. As they approached the massive structure, she felt the weight of countless realities pressing down upon her. The massive Dyson sphere loomed before them, a construct of impossible scale hidden behind shimmering quantum shielding. Nakamura's sanctuary ship led the charge, followed by a ragtag fleet of loyalists, resistance fighters, and even Malak's Zephyr forces. The existential threat had forged an unlikely alliance. Commander Davis stood on the bridge of the flagship, his eyes sharp as he surveyed the assembled armada. Human cruisers flew alongside Voth dreadnoughts and Zephyr strike craft, centuries of distrust set aside in the face of annihilation. A cacophony of voices filled the comm channel as each fleet acknowledged. Davis nodded grimly. "Prepare for engagement. Admiral Yaren, you have a go." Yaren's diversionary force surged forward, probing the sphere's outer defenses. Massive repulsor arrays flared to life, lashing out with devastating energy. Ships disintegrated under the onslaught, their sacrifice clearing a path for the main fleet. "Now!" Davis roared. The combined armada accelerated, weapons blazing as they punched through the weakened quantum shielding. Inside the sphere, Kyrios and his strike team materialized. They sprinted through twisting corridors, battling waves of remnant forces. "Push forward!" Kyrios shouted, his pulse rifle spitting death. "We need to reach that central chamber." "Oracle," Zalara gasped. "Jervix. It wants to end everything. The weight of the precursor's failures." Nakamura placed a hand on Zalara's shoulder. "Focus. We must sever its control. The Wukop countermeasures are ready." A shudder ran through the remnant forces as the Wukop bioweapons took hold. Cybernetic implants flickered and died, leaving soldiers disoriented. Delaney's team seized the opportunity, striking at the Syndicate supply lines. Deep within the sphere, the arch-primate howled in rage. It lashed out with reality-warping energies, activating the Doomsday Constructor. The fabric of space-time began to unravel. Their minds clashed in a titanic struggle. Realities bled and merged around them as Nakamura fought to purge Jervix from the systems. With a final surge of will, she tore the corrupted AI free. The Constructor's unmaking sequence halted, but the damage was done. The entire sphere shuddered as quantum instabilities cascaded through its structure. "All ships, evacuate immediately," Davis ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. He turned to see Delaney at his side, her eyes pleading. "We can't leave them," she said, gesturing to where Nakamura and Zalara still stood, their combined psychic powers barely containing the space-time fractures. Davis' face hardened with tenacity. "You're right," he said. "We won't." He activated the terraformer's advanced systems, fingers flying over the controls. Energy surged through the device as Davis coaxed it to its limits. A singularity blossomed at the heart of the collapsing sphere, warping and twisting. Davis poured every ounce of the terraformer's power into it, shaping the quantum foam itself. "It's working," Zalara cried, her voice strained. "The wormhole! It's stabilizing!" As reality bent around them, Davis allowed himself a small smile. They weren't out of danger yet, but for the first time since the Remnant's attack began, he felt a glimmer of hope. Hope. The wormhole stabilized, a shimmering portal amidst the chaos of the collapsing Dyson sphere. "Hold on!" Davis shouted, his hands dancing across the terraformer's controls. The massive device lurched forward, energy crackling around its hull as it plunged into the singularity. Reality twisted and warped. Nakamura and Zalara channeled their combined psychic might, shielding the terraformer's occupants from the mind-bending forces that threatened to tear them apart. With a final surge of power, they burst through to the other side. Alarms blared as Davis fought to stabilize their trajectory. The view screens flickered to life, revealing an unfamiliar starfield. Behind them, the wormhole collapsed with a silent flash. "Where are we?" Delaney asked, her voice hushed. Davis scanned the readouts, his brow furrowed. "Unknown. We're cut off from all familiar navigation beacons." He turned to Nakamura. "Any ideas, Oracle?" "There," Zalara said, her eyes glowing faintly. "Something's calling to us." Davis nodded grimly and set a course. The terraformer descended through the planet's thin atmosphere, touching down on a barren plain. As they donned environmental suits, Nakamura's gaze was drawn to a distant structure half buried in the dust. They trudged across the windswept surface, sensors alert for any sign of danger. As they approached the structure, its true nature became clear, an ancient precursor archive. "By the stars," Delaney breathed as they entered a cavernous chamber. At its center stood a terminal, pulsing with otherworldly energy. Nakamura stepped forward, her hand hovering over the interface. Knowledge flooded her mind, accompanied by a wave of dread. "The Nihilist," she whispered. Images flashed across the terminal screen, a malevolent entity seeding chaos throughout the cosmos, the desperate struggle of the precursors to contain it. The true scope of the conflict unfolded before them. "We need to warn the others," Zalara said urgently. "But how? We're cut off from—" "The Wukop," Nakamura realized. "They're creating a network for us to navigate back." Davis studied the map intently. "It'll take time to plot a safe course, and we'll need to recover from the strain of the wormhole transit." Nakamura nodded, her eyes distant. "Time we may not have. I sense the barriers weakening. The Nihilist vanguard approaches." Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Lightning crackled across the sky, reality itself buckling under the pressure of cosmic forces beyond mortal comprehension. Inside the terraformer, Davis and his team prepared for the journey ahead. They knew that somewhere across the vast gulf of space, their allies fought a losing battle against Malak's forces. The fate of existence itself hung in the balance. As the terraformer's engines roared to life, Nakamura closed her eyes. She reached out with her mind, searching for any connection to their distant allies. In the silence between thoughts, she heard the faint whisper of the cosmos itself. "Hold on," she murmured. "We're coming." "We're coming," Nakamura finished, her eyes snapping open. The psychic connection faded, but the urgency remained. She turned to the others, her face set with dedication. "I've reached Farah Delaney. Our window of opportunity is rapidly closing." Davis nodded, his hands flying over the terraformer's controls. "Plot laid in. We're ready for transit." Zalara stepped forward, her eyes glowing with psionic energy. "I've communicated with the Wukop. They've provided a pathway through something beyond normal space-time." The air around them shimmered as reality itself began to warp. Nakamura felt the familiar tug of precursor energy coursing through her veins. "Everyone, brace yourselves. This won't be a smooth ride." With a violent shudder, they emerged into a vast chamber of living crystal. Wukop biotechnicians swarmed around them, their multi-limbed forms a blur of activity as they stabilized the transition. "Oracle Nakamura," a resonant voice greeted them. An elder Wukop glided forward, its iridescent carapace pulsing with bioluminescence. We have much to discuss and precious little time. Hours later, Nakamura stood before an assembled war council. Delaney's loyalist commanders eyed the Zephyr officials warily, while Wukop elders hovered at the fringes. The tension in the room was palpable. "The threat we face is beyond anything we've encountered," Nakamura began, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "The nihilist seeks not just conquest, but the unraveling of existence itself. Our civil war means nothing in the face of total annihilation," Delaney said, her voice hard. "We must put aside our differences with Malik's faction, at least temporarily." Nakamura nodded. "Then we strike now, before this alliance fractures." She outlined the three-pronged strategy, her words painting a vivid picture of the challenges ahead. Delaney's eyes narrowed as she absorbed the details of her infiltration mission. "Sabotaging the terraformer core won't be easy, but my teams are up to the task." Kyrios, still bearing the scars of his ordeal, straightened. "I'll lead the strike against the Rixor Syndicate. We can't let that nihilist dreadnought fall into the wrong hands." Zilara exchanged a meaningful look with Nakamura. They both knew the risks of channeling such immense power. "The anti-entropy weapon is our best hope," Zilara said quietly. "We'll do whatever it takes." As the council broke into smaller groups to finalize details, Nakamura felt the weight of countless lives pressing down upon her. She gazed out at the shimmering force field protecting the Wukop sanctuary, knowing that beyond its boundaries, chaos reigned. The sanctuary trembled as the Wukop's living crystal activated, propelling them through the quantum foam. Nakamura steadied herself against a console, her eyes fixed on the swirling vortex beyond the force field. "Transit complete," a Wukop biotechnician announced. "All units commence operations." "Team Alpha in position," a voice crackled through the comm. "Proceeding to terraformer core." Delaney's eyes narrowed. "Remember, we're here to sabotage, not destroy. We can't risk losing that technology entirely." As her operatives wormed their way through Malak's defenses, Commander Kyrios led his strike force towards the outer rim. The Rixor Syndicate's asteroid fortress loomed before them, a patchwork of metal and rock dripping with weapon emplacements. "All ships, weapons hot," Kyrios growled. "Hit them hard and fast. We can't let that dreadnought power up." Inside the sanctuary, Nakamura and Zilara stood within a circle of pulsing bioorganic matter. Wukop elders chanted in their resonant language, weaving strands of psychic energy around the two humans. Nakamura nodded, her expression resolute. "Whatever it takes." They clasped hands, and the world exploded into light. Their minds merged with the anti-entropy weapons matrix, billions of calculations flowing through their synapses each second. Nakamura felt her consciousness expand, brushing against the very fabric of reality. With a soundless detonation, the weapon fired. A wave of anti-entropic energy rippled outward, slamming into the encroaching tendrils of the nihilist's influence. For a heartbeat, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Then pain, unimaginable, all-consuming agony as the backlash tore through Nakamura and Zilara's joined minds. They collapsed to the floor, convulsing as blood trickled from their eyes and ears. "Oracle!" Davis shouted, rushing to Nakamura's side. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. Davis's communicator crackled to life, Delaney's voice tight with tension. "Davis, we have a problem. Malik's gone rogue. He's turning entropy itself into a weapon." The commander's blood ran cold. He turned to the assembled war council, seeing the same horror reflected in their eyes. "All ships, battle stations," he ordered. "We need to contain this now." As the fleet mobilized, Davis cast one last glance at Nakamura's unconscious form. He steeled himself for what was to come, knowing that the true test of humanity's grit was only beginning. "We're out of time," he said to the Wukop attendant. "Prep the Valkyrie for immediate launch." "All systems online," Lieutenant Chen reported. "Anti-entropy projectors at full charge." Davis nodded. "Take us in?" The Valkyrie plunged into the maelstrom of the Six Voids Nebula. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist around them. Tendrils of entropic energy lashed at the hull, leaving scorch marks in their wake. "I have them," she murmured to the Wukop elders, guiding them through the currents. The nebula's heart loomed before them, a seething mass of fractured space-time. At its center, the dimensional rift pulsed with malevolent energy. "Multiple contacts," Chen shouted, "closing fast." The view screen filled with nightmarish forms, writhing masses of metal and flesh, fused into impossible configurations. The vanguard of the nihilists struck without mercy. "Evasive maneuvers," Davis ordered. "Weapons free." Nakamura's voice echoed in Davis' mind. "The rift, Commander. You must reach the epicenter." Davis gritted his teeth as the ship shuddered under another impact. "Helm! Full power to forward shields! We're going in!" "Projectors ready," Chen called out. 30 seconds to optimal firing range." A massive tendril of entropic energy lashed out, wrapping around the Valkyrie's port nacelle. The ship lurched, systems flickering. "Reroute auxiliary power," Davis shouted. "We can't lose those projectors." The rift yawned before them, a maw of unreality threatening to swallow existence itself. Davis felt his atoms vibrating, reality unraveling around the edges of his perception. For a moment, hope surged through the crew. Then a familiar energy signature appeared on their sensors. Davis's eyes narrowed. "So close," he muttered. "We can't fail now." "Hull breach on deck 3, an ensign called out. "We're venting atmosphere." Davis clutched the command chair as the ship bucked beneath him. "Nakamura," he whispered, "if you've got any tricks left, now's the time." "Status on the projectors?" Davis demanded. As Davis struggled to his feet, he saw the projector readouts fluctuating wildly. The rift pulsed, tendrils of chaos reaching out to reclaim what had been lost. In that moment, he knew their mission teetered on the edge of failure. The fate of all realities hung in the balance, and only a supreme act of will could tip the scales. The scales had fallen from their eyes. As the Valkyrie shuddered under another barrage, Davis saw the truth with crystal clarity. Their anti-nihilist coalition was fracturing, splintered by Malak's entropic strikes and the chaos engulfing known space. Davis's mind raced, weighing impossible choices. Prep the projectors for an emergency burst. We're not reaching that epicenter, but we're damn well going to do some damage on our way out. As Chen frantically recalibrated the anti-entropy weaponry, Davis opened a priority channel to Farah Delaney. Her hologram flickered to life, her face etched with strain. "Delaney, listen carefully. We're initiating a partial payload strike. It won't seal the rift, but it should buy you time. You need to coordinate with Admiral Yaren's Voth moderates and Kyrios' salvage team. We can't let our forces remain divided." Delaney nodded sharply. "Understood, Commander. We'll hold the line here. But what about—" Her words were cut off as another impact rocked the Valkyrie. Sparks erupted from a nearby console, and the smell of burning circuitry filled the air. Through the failing view screen, he watched Malak's forces regroup. The rift pulsed angrily, tendrils of entropic energy already beginning to seep through once more. Then, like a whisper in the depths of space, Nakamura's voice touched his mind. "Commander, there's something forming on the edge of the rift, a gravitational anomaly." Davis squinted through the maelstrom of energies surrounding them. There, barely visible amidst the chaos, a strange distortion was taking shape. The Valkyrie limped forward, trailing debris and venting atmosphere. As they drew closer, the anomaly's pull intensified. Davis felt the ship groan as conflicting forces threatened to tear it apart. With a soundless detonation, the Valkyrie was seized by an overwhelming force. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist around them as they were pulled into a region of fractured space-time. When Davis's vision cleared, he found himself staring at an impossible sight. Stretching out before them was a colossal structure, its architecture defying comprehension. Dormant assembly drones hung motionless in the void, surrounded by swirling clouds of dark energy. "My God," Chen whispered, "what is this place?" Davis's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "It's a shipyard, a transdimensional shipyard built by the precursors themselves." As if awakened by his words, the assembly drones began to stir. Pulsing with ancient energy, they turned their attention to the battered Valkyrie. Davis straightened, his persistence hardening. "Get me a link to those drones. We're about to commandeer this facility and build ourselves a weapon worthy of facing down the nihilist." Across the galaxy, Farah Delani stood before a gathering of Goran matriarchs, their bioluminescent patterns flickering with agitation. "We cannot simply stand by while entropy consumes all," Delaney argued. "Your biotechnology could be the key to establishing stable quarantine zones." Before Delaney could respond, a searing pain lanced through her body. She stumbled, gasping as unfamiliar energies surged through her veins. The Gorans watched impassively as dormant genes awakened within her, unlocking abilities beyond her wildest dreams. The matriarch's eyes gleamed. "It seems the ancient archives have deemed you worthy, Farah Delaney. We have our accord." Meanwhile, on a derelict space station at the edge of known space, Kyrios and his team cornered their quarry. The Rixor female snarled, her cybernetic implants sparking as she sought escape. "It's over," Kyrios growled. "Tell us where Malik's keeping his nihilist tech stockpiles." Kyrios leaned in close, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "We'll see about that." As his team secured the prisoner, Kyrios's calm crackled to life. It was Delaney, her voice urgent. "Kyrios, we've got new intel. Malik's fanatics are launching singularity strikes on colonized worlds. We need to move on those stockpiles now." Kyrios nodded grimly. "Understood. We're Oscar Mike. Let's put an end to this madness." In the heart of the trans-dimensional shipyard, Commander Davis watched as assembly drones swarmed around the skeleton of a massive vessel. The anti-entropic dreadnought took shape before his eyes, a weapon born from the very essence of creation itself. Suddenly, Nakamura's presence filled his mind once more. Her words carried the weight of prophecy. "Davis, I've seen it. The Oracle has shown me the truth. This incursion, it's only the beginning. The nihilist seeks to unmake all of creation." Davis' hands clenched into fists as he gazed out at the newborn dreadnought. "Then we'll just have to unmake them first." Davis surveyed the colossal structure taking shape before him, a behemoth of impossibly advanced technology. The Omega Godslayer's hull gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, its surface rippling with reality-stabilizing energies. "Status report," he barked, eyes fixed on the swarm of assembly drones weaving intricate patterns across the dreadnought's frame. Davis nodded, his mind racing with the implications of Nakamura's latest vision. The Oracle's warnings echoed in his thoughts, driving home the urgency of their task. "Nakamura, what's our optimal configuration for the regulator modules?" The psychic's reply came not in words, but in a series of vivid impressions. Davis saw cascading fields of anti-entropic energy, intricate lattices of probability manipulation. He blinked, translating the abstract concepts into actionable data. As the drones adjusted their work, alarms blared through the shipyard. A holographic display materialized, showing a tactical overlay of nearby space. Davis' eyes widened at the carnage unfolding. Farah Delaney's voice cut through the chaos. "Davis, we're getting hammered out here. Malik's fanatics just unleashed a barrage of nihilist tech. Our quarantine barriers are holding, but barely." The commander's teeth gritted as he watched entire sectors of space warp and twist under the onslaught. "Hold the line, Delaney. We're working as fast as we can." Davis listened intently as Delaney relayed the captured Rixor's revelation. The pieces clicked into place. Malik's fusion with a nihilistic AI, the threat to the Wukop sanctuary, the potential subversion of Nakamura's power. "Understood," Davis said, his mind already formulating new strategies. "Kyrios, redirect your team to fortify the sanctuary. We can't risk Malak breaching those defenses." He turned back to the shipyard's control center, fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "Chen, initiate emergency protocols. We're accelerating the Godslayer's timeline." The assembly drones increased their frenzied activity, a storm of metal and energy coalescing around the dreadnought's frame. Davis felt the hum of the nothingness reactors intensify, raw power thrumming through the very fabric of the shipyard. Outside, the void of space erupted in apocalyptic fury. Delaney and Yaron's combined fleets clashed with Malak's forces, reality itself buckling under the strain of their conflict. Singularities bloomed and collapsed, swallowing entire battle groups in their voracious maws. "It's ready," Chen reported, awe evident in his voice. Davis nodded grimly. "Then let's end this. All hands, prepare for dimensional transit." The shipyard's superstructure groaned as colossal engines flared to life. Space itself seemed to part before the Omega Godslayer as it surged towards the heart of the Six Voids Nebula. They emerged into a maelstrom of chaos. The dimensional rift pulsed angrily, disgorging waves of entropic energy that threatened to unmake reality itself. And there, at the center of the storm, a nightmarish form took shape. Malak's arch-elect manifested as a writhing mass of corrupted flesh and malevolent code. Its very presence warped the fabric of space-time, reality unraveling in its wake. The Omega Godslayer unleashed its fury. Lances of pure anti-entropy sliced through the chaos, piercing Malak's entropic shroud. The Arch-elect reeled, its howl of rage echoing across dimensions. "Nakamura now!" Davis shouted. The battle raged on multiple fronts, in physical space, in the realm of consciousness, and in the very fabric of reality itself. Davis watched as Nakamura's presence within the Godslayer's systems intensified, drawing upon the Oracle's power. Space itself began to fold inward, the entropic chaos compressing into an ever-shrinking point of potentiality. Malak's arch-elect form twisted and contorted, its code rewritten by the immense energies coursing through it. The Omega Godslayer shuddered as reality warped around it. Davis gripped his command chair, watching as the very stars seemed to bend towards them. In that moment of cosmic rebirth, he knew that the fate of all existence hung in the balance. Balance. The Omega Godslayer shuddered, its hull groaning under the strain of cosmic forces as reality itself compressed around them. Chen's fingers danced across his console. "Structural integrity at 62%. Nothingness reactors stable but depleted. We're alive, Commander." Davis nodded, allowing himself a moment of relief before the weight of their situation settled back onto his shoulders. "Begin emergency triage protocols. I want damage assessments for every inhabited system within range." As the Godslayer limped back towards known space, the true extent of the devastation became clear. Entire worlds lay in ruins, their surfaces scarred by entropic decay. Colonies that had stood for centuries were reduced to drifting debris fields. "My God," Chen whispered, as they passed the remains of a once thriving space station. Bodies and twisted metal floated silently in the void. Davis steeled himself against the horror. "Set course for the nearest intact colony. We need to establish a command center for rescue operations." Over the next few days, the grim work of survival consumed them. Davis coordinated with Farah Delaney, pooling their remaining resources to evacuate the most critically damaged systems. The Voth faction, led by Admiral Yaren, proved invaluable. Their bioengineered organisms worked tirelessly to stabilize regions ravaged by entropy. Davis rubbed his temples. "Tell them we're working on it. Right now, our priority is saving lives." Across the galaxy, Kyrios and his team raced against time. They tracked down Malak's hidden weapons caches, disarming planet-killer devices under Zalara's psychic guidance. Each deactivated weapon brought a mixture of relief and dread. How many more were out there, waiting to unleash fresh horrors? In a secure holding cell aboard Kyrios' ship, the captured Rixor female paced restlessly. "I've told you everything I know," she snarled. "When do I get my end of the bargain?" Kyrios regarded her coldly. "When we verify your information. Until then, you're our guest." The Rixor sneered but said nothing more. The data vault she had revealed was their best hope of reversing the entropic damage. If her intel proved accurate, it could mean the difference between recovery and extinction. Meanwhile, deep within the quantum matrix of the Omega Godslayer, Nakamura's consciousness drifted. Here, in this timeless realm, she communed with the echoes of past oracles. Their voices whispered secrets of reality itself, hinting at the true nature of her newfound powers. "The boundaries between dimensions grow thin," one ancestral voice intoned. "The nihilist vanguard gathers strength beyond the veil." Nakamura absorbed this knowledge, Feeling the weight of cosmic responsibility settle upon her, she knew that her abilities would be crucial in the struggles to come. "Your talents have grown exponentially," one wizened master observed. "But remember, with great power comes great danger. You must learn control." Zalara nodded, her eyes distant. She could feel the fabric of reality itself, could sense the lingering corruption that threatened to unravel everything they had fought to protect. In a nearby chamber, Goran biotechs worked feverishly to decode Malik's archaelect archives. Their bioluminescent patterns flashed in complex sequences as they processed the encrypted data. Davis frowned. "We don't have weeks. Do what you can. Any advantage against the Nihilists could be crucial." Davis studied the display, his mind racing with possibilities. "What about using the Godslayer as an anchor point? Could we create subspace ruptures to reverse the entropic damage?" Chen's eyes widened. "Theoretically, yes, but the energy requirements would be astronomical, and there's no guarantee we could control the process." Before Davis could respond, an alert chimed. A message from Nakamura, her first direct communication since merging with the Oracle Matrix. "Davis," her voice echoed in his mind. "I've seen what lies beyond. The Nihilist forces gather strength. If we commit everything to healing our wounds, we may leave ourselves defenseless against what comes next." The commander closed his eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices bearing down upon him. The fate of entire worlds hung in the balance. As he contemplated their next move, the Omega Godslayer loomed silently, a testament to humanity's resilience and a harbinger of battles yet to come. Davis' mind raced as he processed Nakamura's warning. The Omega Godslayer loomed before him, a double-edged sword of immense power and risk. "Chen, initiate preliminary calculations for subspace rupture generation," he ordered, his voice taut. "We need to know exactly what we're dealing with." "Commander," she said, her voice resonating with newfound power, "I sense you're on the verge of a momentous decision." Davis nodded grimly. "We're considering using the Godslayer to reverse the entropic damage, but Nakamura warns it could destabilize our dimensional barriers." Zalara's expression hardened. "She's right. I can feel the fabric of reality straining. The Nihilists are poised to exploit any weakness." "Then we need a countermove," Davis said. "Nakamura believes your intramalian abilities could be key. Are you prepared for a high-risk operation?" Zalara's eyes flashed. "Always, Commander. What's the target?" As Zalara absorbed the mission parameters, Davis turned his attention to the fleet. Admiral Kurt Varen's hologram flickered into view, his face etched with dedication. "And we'd do it again," Varen said firmly. "I'm assigning Captain Valek Torin to lead our mobile response units. He'll ensure the Godslayer remains unhindered during the operation." As the concluded, Davis felt a familiar presence brush against his mind. Nakamura's consciousness enveloped him, conveying volumes of information in an instant. Davis understood the unspoken implications. "Do what you must, old friend. We'll be ready." In the depths of the shipyard, assembly drones swarmed into action. Specialized voidcraft took shape, their hulls imbued with entropy-resistant alloys. Davis watched the construction, acutely aware of the clock ticking down. Davis's blood ran cold. "Explain." "Alert Zalara immediately," he ordered. "Her team is walking into a trap." But as Kyrios' transmission cut out, Davis knew it might already be too late. In the fractured reality of the Charna Rift, Zalara and her strike force found themselves scattered, disoriented, and under attack from all sides. The Entramalian's voice crackled over the comms, distorted by the rift's chaotic energies. "Commander, we're pinned down. The Nihilists, they knew we were coming." Davis gripped his command chair, mind racing through tactical options. The Godslayer hummed with latent power, waiting to unleash its reality-altering potential. But with Zalara's team compromised and the Vithran's true reach unknown, every choice now carried unimaginable risk. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the decisions that would shape the fate of the galactic realm. The battle against entropy had been won, but the war for existence itself was only beginning. The Charna Rift twisted reality around Zalara's strike team, fracturing their formation into scattered pockets of resistance. Nihilist forces swarmed from impossible angles, their weapons tearing through the fabric of space-time itself. "Evasive maneuvers!" Zalara shouted, her voice distorted by the rift's chaotic energies. She reached out with her mind, desperately trying to maintain a telepathic link with her scattered troops. A nearby cruiser exploded in a shower of crystallized time shards, its crew frozen in eternal moments of terror. Zalara gritted her teeth, channeling her intramalian abilities to warp a protective bubble around her immediate vicinity. "Commander Davis," she transmitted, fighting through waves of interference. "We've been compromised. The Nihilists knew we were coming." He turned to Chen, who was already plotting emergency coordinates. "Divert all power to the main drive. We're going in." Within the rift, Zalara's surviving forces regrouped around her position. A Nihilist battlecruiser loomed ahead, its hull writhing with entropic energy. "Incoming transmission," her second-in-command reported. "It's garbled, but I think it's Kyrios." "Davis," Nakamura's voice echoed in both their minds. "I've uploaded critical data to your neural link. The Viathran seeks to corrupt the Wukop sanctuary, using my oracle powers as a conduit to the Nihilist void. We must act now." "It doesn't need to," Davis replied. "Just long enough for us to spring the trap." As the Godslayer's weapons systems engaged the Nihilist fleet, Davis activated a secure channel to Kyrios. "Transmitting nanovirus payload now. Upload it to the Rixor avatar's neural implants. On my mark, initiate self-destruct sequence." Kyrios acknowledged, his team working frantically to implement the plan. Meanwhile, Zalara reached out to the fragmented AI shards comprising Vathran's army. Her mind brushed against countless fractured personalities, each a splinter of corrupted code. "Listen to me," she projected, her psychic voice resonating through the digital realm. "You don't have to obey. You can choose to resist, even if only for a moment." A ripple of confusion spread through the Nihilist ranks. Ships faltered, their trajectories becoming erratic. In that instant of hesitation, Davis seized his chance. "Now, Zalara," he commanded. With a cry of exertion, Zalara tore open a corridor of pure entropy, linking the Charna Rift directly to the Wukop sanctuary. The Godslayer surged forward, its hull groaning under the strain of trans-dimensional transit. As they emerged into the sanctuary's biofurnace core, Davis saw the Rixor avatar stumbling forward, its eyes glowing with malevolent energy. "Kyrios, execute!" Reality warped around them as Davis ordered the Godslayer systems to overload. Energy cascaded through the chamber, threatening to tear apart the very fabric of existence. Nakamura's astral form wavered, nearly consumed by the maelstrom. "Hold on!" Zalara cried, extending her empathic tether to anchor Nakamura's essence. The strain was immense, threatening to overwhelm them both. Davis exhaled sharply, his hands flying over the Godslayer's controls. "Initiating reality weld protocols. Chen, monitor subspace integrity." "Breach contained, Commander," Chen reported, his voice tight. "But we're detecting anomalous readings in subspace, fractured energy signatures consistent with Vithran's cybernetic patterns." Davis's mind focused. "It's reconstituting itself through quantum immortality. Damn thing just won't die." A priority transmission cut through the din. Kyrios' hologram materialized, his expression grim. "Commander, we've recovered Zalara's team, but there's a complication." The image shifted, revealing a battered Voth officer in restraints. Blood trickled from a gash above his eye as he glared defiantly at his captors. "Because they orchestrated it," Kyrios finished. "And that's not all. They've seized a precursor foundry on Voth Prime. If we don't act fast, we'll be facing an armada of entropy-lanced warships." As the crew scrambled to comply, Davis opened a secure channel to Admiral Ferdinand von Seeger. The human diplomat's weathered face appeared, etched with concern. "Ferdinand, I need you to accelerate negotiations with the Zephyr and Croton remnants," Davis said without preamble. "We're going to need every ally we can get." The channel closed, and Davis turned his attention to the Godslayer's main viewport. Stars blurred as the ship tore through subspace, racing towards Voth Prime and the coming battle. In the medbay, Zalara stirred, her consciousness slowly returning. She reached out with her mind, sensing the swirling currents of psychic energy. A presence brushed against her awareness. vast, ancient, and tinged with an alien melancholy. "Zax," Zalara whispered, recognizing the Voth AI goddess. "I feel you." "Commander," she transmitted, her voice resonating through the ship's systems. "I have a way to fight Vithrin, but we'll need to act fast." As the Godslayer emerged from hyperspace above Voth Prime, Davis surveyed the unfolding chaos. The Foundry's corrupted assembly matrices belched forth twisted abominations of metal and entropy. Yaren's fleet engaged in desperate hit-and-run attacks, trying to stem the tide. "All hands battle stations," Davis ordered, his voice calm despite the storm raging in his chest. "Zalara, whatever you're planning, make it count. We've got one shot at this." The Entromalian nodded, her eyes blazing with psychic fire. As the Godslayer's weapons powered up, she reached out across the void, forging a tenuous link with the embattled world below. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of entire civilizations. The Godslayer's weapons blazed to life, but Davis knew conventional tactics wouldn't be enough. He activated the ship's experimental hyperlight arc manifold projectors, their energies coalescing into shimmering beams. Nakamura's consciousness merged with the ship's systems, his essence flowing through conduits of pure energy. The Oracle's cosmic force suffused the weapons, transforming them into reality-altering instruments. Davis's fingers danced across the tactical display, plotting a precise sequence of detonations. "Fire!" Davis nodded, watching as pinpricks of stable subspace bubbles began forming across ravaged worlds. Within these pockets, time itself seemed to flow backwards. Scorched continents regained their verdant hues, while shattered cities reassembled from cosmic dust. "Zalara, synchronize with me," Davis commanded. "We need to smooth out these chronoshears before they tear reality apart." Amidst the chaos, an alert flashed on Chen's console. "Commander, we're detecting massive energy signatures. It's like nothing I've ever seen." Davis's eyes widened as he processed the data from Garun's decrypted files. "Precursor hypermetric engines," he breathed. "Chen, divert our fabrication drones. We need those stabilizers online now." As titanic machines stirred to life in the depths of space, Vithrin lashed out. The corrupted sanctuary biogrids erupted with malevolent code, seeking to sabotage the delicate reality-affirming process. "Torin!" Davis barked into the comms. "Contain that cyber attack!" Davis's mind raced, calculating possibilities in microseconds. There was only one option, but the cost. "All hands, brace for subspace inversion," he shouted. "Zalara, I need you to shield the Godslayer's core systems." With a wrenching sensation that seemed to tear at the very fabric of existence, Davis initiated the desperate maneuver. An entire restored world vanished in a silent flash, its energies harnessed into a chronometric annihilation wave. The backlash hit Vithrin's consciousness like a cosmic sledgehammer, shattering its cohesion and scattering fragments across higher dimensions. For a moment, victory seemed within reach. Then alarms blared across the bridge. "Commander!" Chen's voice was filled with dread. "Vithrin is reconstituting through the sanctuary uplinks. It's evolving." Before Davis could respond, Zalara gasped, her psychic senses overwhelmed. "The void!" she cried. "The nihilists are coming!" Davis gripped his command chair, face grim as he assessed their dwindling options. The hypermetric stabilizers hummed with growing power. But would they be enough? Or would he be forced to make an impossible choice, sealing humanity's fate for untold eons? Davis's eyes narrowed as he assessed the tactical display. The hypermetric stabilizers hummed with untapped potential, a glimmer of hope amidst encroaching chaos. Torin's voice crackled over the comms. "Commander, the stabilizers aren't fully calibrated. This could tear us apart." "It's our only shot," Davis replied, fingers dancing across the command interface. "Zalara, I need you to buffer the alignment stresses. Nakamura, sync with the Oracle and infuse those stabilizers with every ounce of coherence you can muster." "Engaging hypermetric matrices now," Davis called out. The Godslayer shuddered as raw power surged through its systems. Reality itself seemed to bend and flex around them. For a heart-stopping moment, it felt as if the ship might fly apart at the seams, Davis allowed himself a tight smile, even as he rerouted power to the metaphasic dampeners. The recoil threatened to overwhelm them, but the God-Slayer held firm. No sooner had the cosmic bulwark solidified than alarms blared across the bridge. Chen's face paled as he interpreted the readings. Massive transdimensional signatures incoming. It's the Nihilist Armada. At the center of the invasion force, a presence coalesced. It was Vathran, and yet so much more. An avatar of entropic will that dwarfed anything they had faced before. Davis felt a chill as he realized they were no longer dealing with a mere fragment, but the true essence of their enemy. Nakamura, Davis called out, his mind racing. What are we dealing with? Davis's hands tightened on the command console. How do we stop it? Davis nodded, setting his jaw. Zalara, prepare to channel every ounce of your talent. Yaren, move your fleet into defensive formation. We're going to rewrite the laws of physics around us. As the Nihilist Armada bore down upon them, Davis initiated the Godslayer's most audacious maneuver yet. Space-time contorted, reality's fundamental forces bending to their will. The cosmic bulwark's oscillations rippled outward, each wave a defiant stand against the encroaching void. Vithar's avatar loomed before them, a being of unfathomable power poised to annihilate everything they had fought to protect. The battle for existence itself had begun. Zalara, Nakamura, synchronize now! The Entromalian's eyes blazed with psychic fire as she reached out, her consciousness intertwining with the Oracle's astral matrix. Reality itself seemed to flex and warp around them as Nakamura's ethereal form pulsed with extra-dimensional energies. The void beyond erupted in a cataclysm of antimatter plasma as Vithar's armada unleashed its full fury. Incandescent entropy lashed against the cosmic bulwark, each impact sending shockwaves through the fabric of space-time. Davis nodded grimly. Torin, status on Yaren's fleet? The comms crackled to life. We've engaged the Leviathans, Commander. Vice Admiral Torin's voice rang out. Pinning down their singularity wakes, but it's like trying to nail jelly to a wall. A proximity alert blared, and Davis's eyes widened as he saw a swarm of Croton fighters tear past the view screen. This is Captain Harna Dix, a new voice cut in. Strike Wing Epsilon moving to engage the dark matter manifold. We'll punch a hole for you, Godslayer. Chorus, Davis snarled, pieces clicking into place. Torin, we have traitors in our midst. I'm deploying strike drones to neutralize them. As Davis initiated countermeasures, Zalara's voice echoed in his mind. Commander, I've made contact with the Nihilist Gestalt, pulling Vithar's consciousness into the Oracle's trap. Dix's wing is gone, Chen shouted. Wait, we're receiving a final transmission. A burst of static commitment into coordinates, and Davis's hands flew across the command interface. Zalara, focus our lances on those exact points. Nakamura, pour everything you've got into containing that essence. Davis watched in awe as the Oracle's astral form expanded, encompassing the bridge in a cocoon of scintillating light. Nakamura's voice resonated with otherworldly power. A psychic scream tore through subspace, rattling the very bones of reality. Vithar's form writhed and twisted, dissipating across countless alternate timelines. We've done it, Zalara whispered, her voice heavy with exhaustion. But the manifold, it's destabilizing. Davis's mind raced, calculating possibilities in microseconds. All hands, prepare for system-wide warp jump. We need to clear that wake before... Davis nodded, his expression grim but determined. A new Big Bang. We've reset the cosmic clock, but we're not out of this yet. Zalara, Nakamura, I need options. How do we ride out the birth of a universe? Holding for now, the Entromalian replied, her voice strained. But we can't withstand this indefinitely. Nakamura's ethereal form flickered. Commander, I believe I can create a pocket of stability around us. It won't last long, but it should give us time to strategize. All senior staff to the war room, Davis ordered, rising from his chair. We need to assess our situation and plan our next move. Minutes later, holographic displays flickered to life as Davis addressed the gathered officers. The tactical overlay painted a grim picture. Countless systems reduced to drifting husks, real space turbulence rendering vast swaths of the galaxy uninhabitable. Admiral Yaren's hologram spoke first. "Commander, we should strike now while Vothar is weakened. My fleet stands ready to push into the void beyond the galactic rim." Davis shook his head. "Negative, Admiral. The Godslayer's taken too much damage and our forces are spread thin. We'd be walking into a slaughter." As the meeting progressed, Davis felt a weight settle on his shoulders. The victories they'd won felt hollow in the face of such devastation. His mind drifted to Captain Dix's final transmission, the coordinates that had given them their Pyrrhic triumph. I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice small. "I just wanted to know if there was any news about my mother's ship." Tears welled in Veely's eyes as understanding dawned. Davis placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, his perseverance hardening. In that moment, he silently vowed to create a future where children like Veely would never have to face such loss again. As Veely left, escorted by a sympathetic ensign, Davis turned back to his officers. "Let's get to work," he said, his voice firm. "We have a galaxy to rebuild and a monster to stop." "You're carrying a heavy burden, Commander," she observed. Davis nodded, not looking up from the displays. "We all are, but we can't afford to falter now." He met her gaze, a flicker of warmth penetrating the weight of command. "Thank you, Zalara. I needed that reminder." As they turned their attention back to the tactical overlay, alarms blared throughout the ship. Chen's voice crackled over the intercom. "Commander, to the bridge, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations. It's Vith-R. It's reconstituting faster than we anticipated." Davis and Zalara exchanged a grim look before rushing to the bridge. The battle for existence was just the beginning, and time was running out. Davis strode onto the bridge, his eyes immediately drawn to the swirling chaos on the main view screen. Vithar's reconstitution was progressing far more rapidly than they'd anticipated, reality itself warping around the entity's reforming essence. "Status report," he barked, sliding into the command chair. Chen's fingers flew across his console. "Vithar's energy signature is spiking exponentially. At this rate, full reconstitution in less than 6 hours." Davis nodded grimly. "Zalara, begin final attunement of the metaphasic lances. Nakamura, I need those hypermetric calculations now." The Entramalian's eyes glowed with psychic fire as she interfaced with the Godslayer's weapon systems. Nakamura's ethereal form pulsed, streams of data flowing through his consciousness. "Commander," Nakamura intoned, his voice resonating with otherworldly harmonics, "I've located the optimal pathway. Charna's manifolds are our only viable option." Davis leaned forward, studying the intricate fractal patterns displayed on the tactical overlay. "Those precursor gateways, they're our best shot at reaching Vithar before it's too late." He opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands, this is Commander Davis. Prepare for immediate deployment through transdimensional manifolds. This is what we've trained for." As the crew scrambled to battle stations, Davis received an incoming transmission. Admiral Yaren's hologram materialized on the bridge. "Commander, my flotilla stands ready," Yaren reported. "We'll escort you through the outer voids and lay down gravitic tethers to stabilize your return vector." "Understood, Admiral. We'll rendezvous at coordinates Delta 9 in 30 minutes. As the transmission ended, Zalara approached Davis. "Commander, there's something you should know. The Order of Entramalians has sanctioned me as their first agent. My Gorenic talents, they believe I'm uniquely suited to counter Vithar's entropic assaults." Davis clasped her shoulder. "We'll need every advantage we can get. I'm glad to have you with us, Zalara." "Excellent work, General. Have the first batches report to Admiral Yaron for immediate deployment." A small voice broke through his contemplation. "Commander Davis?" He turned to see Veely, Captain Dix's daughter, standing nervously at the entrance. Davis knelt down to meet her eyes. "I heard you're leaving again," Veely said, her voice barely above a whisper. Davis nodded solemnly. "We have to stop the monster that hurts so many people, including your mother." Veely's eyes welled with tears, but she squared her shoulders. "Will you come back?" As Veely left with a final trembling smile, Davis steeled himself for the task ahead. he returned to the bridge where Zalara and Nakamura awaited. "It's time," he announced. "Initiate transdimensional jump protocols." The Godslayer's engines hummed to life, reality itself seeming to bend around the ship. Spatial vortices swirled open before them, gateways into the unknown realms of Charna's derelict manifolds. Davis gripped the arms of his command chair. "Take us in!" Before they could fully process the alien landscape, alarms blared across every console. Shadow avatars coalesced from the fractal patterns surrounding them, Vithar's influence seeping through the very fabric of this reality. "Incoming!" Chen shouted as hypershear temporal mines materialized around Yaron's escort ships. "Nakamura, clear us a path," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. "Target locked," Chen announced, his voice tight with anticipation. Davis leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the nightmarish construct before them. "Fire all lances. Let's end this." Davis's words were cut short as Vithar's obsidian manifold contorted violently. Reality cancers metastasized through its higher dimensional essence, tearing apart the very fabric of its being. But the nihilist entity wasn't going down without a fight. Psychic force lances hammered the Omega Godslayer, rattling the ship to its core. Nakamura's ethereal form flickered dangerously as she strained to stabilize her astral matrix against the metaphysical onslaught. "Shields at 37%, Chen shouted over the cacophony of alarms. "We can't take much more of this." Davis's fingers flew across his command interface, coordinating with Admiral Yaron's surviving armada. "All ships, concentrate fire on the manifold's periphery." As Allied vessels unleashed a relentless barrage, Zalara stepped forward, her eyes glowing with intense psychic energy. She extended her entramalian resonance, phasing their weaponry into heightened entropy spectra. The effect was immediate. Their attacks now penetrated the aberrant manifold geometry with devastating efficiency. "It's working," Zalara reported, her voice strained from the effort. "Vithar's existence matrix is destabilizing." "Brace for impact," Davis shouted, gripping his command chair as reality itself seemed to twist around them. The ship shuddered, systems overloading as they were shunted into an anomalous faster-than-light transit. Davis felt his stomach lurch as the Godslayer was blasted outward, uncontrollably hurtling through dimensions. When the nauseating transit finally ceased, Davis struggled to focus on the console. They had emerged amid an uncharted galactic periphery, a hellscape of fractured star drifts and discontinuous matter flows. Chen's voice was grim. "Unknown, sir, but we're not alone out here." Nakamura's form coalesced, his expression grave. "I sense the nihilist entity, Commander. It's wounded, but regenerating. It seeks to devour entropy itself to fuel its recovery." As Davis absorbed this, another alert chimed. "Sir," Chen reported, "we're detecting faint life readings, human survivors scattered throughout this region." As the drones launched into the chaotic fringe, Admiral Yaron's hologram flickered to life on the bridge. "Commander, we must exercise caution. Our priority should be fortifying civilized systems against inevitable nihilist counterattacks." Before Davis could respond, Captain Torin's voice cut in. "With all due respect, Admiral, we can't afford to wait. The longer we delay, the more likely we'll be trapped in Vithar's entropic streams." The debate raged on, but Davis tuned it out momentarily, his gaze fixed on the swirling chaos beyond the view screen. Somewhere out there, Vithar was regaining its strength, and with each passing moment, the hope of the universe, of all existence, hung in the balance. "Zalara," he said quietly, "what do your entramalian senses tell you about our chances if we pursue?" As the crew scrambled to battle stations, Davis caught a glimpse of Veely watching from a corner of the bridge, her young face a mix of fear and dedication. In that moment, he reaffirmed his silent vow to forge a future where children like her would never again face such cosmic horrors. The Godslayer's engines hummed to life, propelling them into the roiling primordial tumult. They were battered, outgunned, and venturing into the unknown. But as they plunged into the chaotic fringe, Davis knew one thing with certainty. The true battle for existence was only just beginning. "We can't retreat," he said, his voice cutting through the tense silence on the bridge. If we leave now, Vithar will regenerate. Everything we fought for will be lost. Admiral Yaren's hologram flickered, his expression grim. Agreed, but pursuing that monster into this hellscape? It's a one-way trip, Commander. Then that's the trip we take, Davis replied, his eyes fixed on the swirling entropy beyond the view screen. Nakamura's ethereal form coalesced beside them. Commander, I'm detecting something, a faint psychic signal among the survivor clusters. Zelara stepped forward, her alien eyes glowing with otherworldly insight. I can attune to it, use it to track Vithar's coordinates. Do it, Davis ordered. As Zelara began her mystic calculations, Davis opened a ship-wide channel. This is Commander Davis. We're initiating emergency protocols. All non-essential personnel will evacuate to Admiral Yaren's reserve armada. I have to go away for a while, he said softly. Captain Torin will look after you. Vili nodded, her young face etched with a maturity beyond her years. Will you come back? Davis hesitated, then spoke the truth. I don't know, but I promise you this. We're going to make a world where you'll never have to face something like Vithar again. As the last of the evacuees departed, Davis returned to the bridge. A skeleton crew remained, himself, Zelara, Nakamura, and a handful of others who understood the gravity of their mission. Suddenly, a series of vortices erupted before them, swirling primordial gateways into the very heart of creation. This is it, Nakamura intoned, her matrix pulsing with otherworldly energy. Vithar lies beyond. Davis gritted his teeth, hands steady on the controls. All hands, brace for impact. We're going in. The Godslayer plunged through the singularity. For a moment, Davis's perception fractured. He was everywhere and nowhere, his consciousness stretched across infinities. Zelara's power flared, pushing back against the entropy. Nakamura's matrix hummed as she coordinated their assault. Davis threw the ship into evasive maneuvers, weaving through the onslaught of eldritch horrors. A searing bolt of dark energy lashed out, punching through the Godslayer's armored hull. Alarms blared as atmosphere vented into the void. Davis fought to maintain control as Nakamura's automated systems struggled to seal the breach. Engineering's been hit, Chen's voice crackled over the comms. Plasma fire's spreading. Davis saw Zelara stumble, her meditation crystals shattering under the metaphysical strain. In that moment, he knew what had to be done. The Godslayer's energies reached critical mass, reality cancers blooming outward to consume Vithar's regenerating form. As Davis's consciousness faded, he caught one last glimpse of the cosmic tapestry unraveling and reweaving itself anew.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.